The Phoenician glass blowers, close your eyes now and let yourself drift back through time, back beyond the rushing world of today, beyond the noise and hurry, back to a time when the Mediterranean Sea was a highway of dreams, and the ancient city of Sidon stood proud against the azure sky. The year is 1200 BCE, and the morning sun casts long golden shadows across the cobblestone streets of this great Phoenician city. The air is warm and gentle, carrying the scent of cedar wood and the distant salt of the sea. In a quiet quarter of the city, where the morning light filters through narrow alleyways, there stands a modest workshop that holds within it the most extraordinary magic. This is the workshop of Khalil, master glass blower, whose family has practiced this ancient art for 7 generations. The workshop is a sanctuary of creativity, where fire and sand dance together to create objects of breathtaking beauty. The walls are thick stone, keeping the interior cool even as the furnaces burn with their eternal flame. Shelves line every wall, displaying goblets that catch the light like captured rainbows, bowls that seem to hold the very essence of the sky, and vessels so delicate they appear to be made of crystallized breath. Let yourself imagine walking through the heavy wooden door of this workshop. Feel the immediate change in temperature as you step from the warm morning air into the cool, dim interior. Your eyes adjust slowly to the gentle light, and you begin to see the wonders that surround you. Hanging from the ceiling are glass ornaments that tinkle softly in the barely perceptible breeze, creating a gentle melody that seems to come from another world. Khalil stands at his workbench, a man of perhaps 50 years, his dark hair streaked with silver, his hands steady and sure from decades of practice. His eyes hold the deep wisdom of someone who has spent his life transforming the simplest materials into objects of wonder. He wears a simple linen tunic, stained here and there with the honest marks of his craft, and leather sandals that have walked these workshop floors for countless years. The furnace glows like a captive sun in the corner of the workshop, its heat radiating outward in gentle waves. The fire within has been burning continuously for over a year, fed carefully with seasoned olive wood and charcoal. This is the heart of the workshop, the source of all creation. The temperature within reaches heights that would melt copper, yet Khalil approaches it with the casual confidence of long familiarity. Near the furnace, clay pots hold the raw materials of his art. There is sand, pure and white, gathered from specific beaches where the grains are perfectly uniform. There is natron, a salt-like substance that comes from the dried lake beds of Egypt, traded for Phoenician purple dye and silver. There are small amounts of other ingredients: lime from crushed shells, potash from burned plants, and tiny quantities of precious metals that will give the finished glass its color and clarity. But this morning, Khalil is not working alone. His apprentice, young Amara, moves quietly around the workshop, preparing the day's materials. She is perhaps 17, with intelligent, dark eyes and hands that, despite her youth, already showed the beginnings of the steady precision that marks a true glassblower. She has been with Khalil for 3 years now, learning not just the techniques of the craft, but its philosophy, its patience, its deep respect for the elements. Amara's movements are graceful and economical as she checks the consistency of the molten glass in the furnace, adjusts the airflow to maintain the perfect temperature, and arranges the tools that will be needed for the day's work. There are long iron rods called pontels, wooden paddles for shaping, shears for cutting, and various molds and forms. Each tool has been used by generations of glassblowers, worn smooth by countless hands, seasoned by years of heat and work. The process begins, as it always does, with the gathering. Khalil takes up his blowpipe, a hollow iron rod about 4 feet long, and approaches the furnace. The heat hits his face like a warm embrace, familiar and welcoming. He inserts the end of the blowpipe into the molten glass, which glows like liquid sunlight. With a slow, steady motion, he begins to gather the glass onto the end of the pipe, turning it continuously to ensure an even coating. The molten glass moves like thick honey, flowing and shaping itself around the pipe. It is mesmerizing to watch this dance between solid and liquid, between the craftsman's will and the glass's natural tendency to flow. The glass seems almost alive, responsive to every movement, every breath, every intention. Once he has gathered enough glass, Khalil withdraws the pipe from the furnace and begins the first shaping. He rolls the gathered glass on a smooth iron plate called a marver, evening out the surface and creating a uniform shape. The glass is still soft, still malleable, but it is cooling rapidly. Every movement must be purposeful. Every second counts. Now comes the moment that gives glass blowing its name. Khalil lifts the pipe to his lips and blows gently into it. The glass responds immediately, expanding like a soap bubble, but with far more weight and substance. The expansion is slow and controlled, the glass stretching and thinning as air fills the space within. This is the moment of pure magic, when breath becomes form, when the invisible becomes visible. Amara watches with rapt attention, her own breathing synchronized with her master's. She has learned that glass blowing is as much about rhythm and timing as it is about technique. The glass has its own schedule, its own pace of cooling and hardening. The craftsman must work with this natural rhythm, never fighting it, always in harmony with the material. The piece Khalil is creating today is a water jug, commissioned by a wealthy merchant for his daughter's wedding. It will be a thing of beauty, decorated with delicate swirls of blue and gold, shaped to pour with perfect balance and grace. But for now, It is simply a rough bubble of glass, holding within it infinite possibilities. As the glass cools, it becomes less malleable, but it also becomes more stable. Khalil uses this gradual stiffening to his advantage, shaping the piece in stages, reheating it in the furnace when necessary to restore its workability. This dance between heating and cooling, between soft and firm, between liquid and solid, is the fundamental rhythm of glass blowing. The workshop fills with the soft sounds of the craft, the whisper of breath through the pipe, the gentle clink of tools against glass, the barely audible hiss of the furnace. These sounds create a peaceful symphony, a meditation in music that helps to slow the mind and calm the spirit. Amara prepares the colored glass that will be used for decoration. In small crucibles set into the edges of the furnace, she melts glass that has been colored with various minerals. Copper creates a deep, rich blue like the heart of the Mediterranean. Gold produces a warm amber that seems to glow with inner light. Silver creates a pearlescent white that shimmers like moonlight on water. Iron gives a deep green like the shadows in a forest glade. The process of adding color is one of the most delicate aspects of glass blowing. The colored glass must be at exactly the right temperature. Too hot, and it will overpower the base glass. Too cool, and it will not adhere properly. Khalil takes small amounts of the colored glass on the end of a thin rod and applies it to the surface of the jug in graceful spirals and curves. The blue glass flows like water across the surface, creating patterns that seem to move and shift in the light. The gold adds accents that catch the eye and draw it around the form in a pleasing rhythm. Each addition of color requires the piece to be reheated slightly, keeping the glass in that perfect state of controlled malleability. As the morning progresses, the jug takes shape under Khalil's patient hands. The neck is drawn out and shaped, creating a graceful curve that will direct the flow of water. The handle is added, formed from a separate piece of glass that is heated and attached, while both pieces are still soft enough to fuse together permanently. The lip is carefully formed, rounded and smooth, pleasant to drink from. The workshop grows warmer as the sun climbs higher in the sky, but the thick stone walls keep the interior comfortable. Shafts of sunlight penetrate through small windows set high in the walls, creating moving patterns of light and shadow that dance across the workshop floor. The interplay of light becomes part of the creative process, revealing the true beauty of the glass as it takes shape. Amara has been working on her own project, a simple bowl that will serve as practice for more complex pieces. Her movements are less assured than her master's, but they show the careful attention to detail that marks a dedicated student. She breathes steadily into her blowpipe, expanding the glass gradually, patiently, allowing each stage to develop fully before moving on to the next. The learning process in glass blowing cannot be rushed. Each piece teaches something new about the behavior of the material, the effects of temperature, the importance of timing. Mistakes are not failures, but teachers, each one adding to the store of knowledge that will eventually make the apprentice a master. The furnace continues its steady burn, consuming wood and charcoal, maintaining the precise temperature needed for the work. Tending the fire is an art in itself, requiring constant attention to the quality of the flame, the distribution of heat, the balance of air and fuel. Too hot, and the glass becomes too fluid to control. Too cool, and it becomes stiff and difficult to work. As the jug nears completion, Khalil begins the final shaping. This is the most critical phase, when all the elements must come together in perfect harmony. The proportions must be pleasing to the eye. The balance must be perfect for practical use. The decoration must enhance rather than overwhelm the basic form. Using wooden paddles and metal tools, he refines the shape, smoothing curves, adjusting angles, ensuring that every line flows naturally into the next. The glass responds to his touch like a living thing, each adjustment changing the character of the entire piece. This is craftsmanship at its highest level, where technical skill and artistic vision merge into something greater than either could achieve alone. The heat of the day is building now, but inside the workshop, time seems to move differently. The eternal rhythm of the craft creates its own sense of time, measured not in hours, but in the natural cycles of heating and cooling, gathering and shaping, creating and completing. This is meditative work, requiring total concentration and yet producing a profound sense of peace. The entire quarter is alive with the sounds of creation, each craftsman contributing to the great symphony of human ingenuity. But in the glass workshop, the sounds remain soft and contemplative. The whisper of breath, the gentle scrape of tools, the quiet conversation between master and apprentice. These create an atmosphere of peaceful concentration that seems to exist outside the normal flow of time. Khalil's jug is nearly complete now. The body is perfectly formed, the neck elegant and functional, the handle balanced and comfortable. The blue and gold decoration spirals around the form like captured music, creating a visual rhythm that pleases the eye and lifts the spirit. It is a piece that will bring joy to its owner for many years, a daily reminder of the beauty that can be created when skill and patience come together. The final step is the most dangerous, the removal of the piece from the blowpipe. The glass must be cracked away from the pipe with precise control, leaving a clean break that can be smoothed and finished. This requires perfect timing, as the glass must be neither too hot nor too cool. Too hot and the break will be ragged and difficult to control. Too cool and the glass may shatter unpredictably. Khalil touches a cold iron rod to the glass just above where it connects to the blowpipe. The thermal shock creates a controlled crack that propagates around the circumference of the glass. With a gentle tap, the jug separates cleanly from the pipe, complete and perfect. The break is smooth and clean, requiring only minor finishing to be ready for use. The completed jug is placed in the unyielding oven, where it will cool slowly and evenly over the course of many hours. This gradual cooling is essential to prevent internal stresses that could cause the glass to crack or shatter later. The annealing process cannot be rushed. It follows its own natural rhythm, just like every other aspect of the craft. As the morning's work concludes, master and apprentice pause to share a simple meal of bread, cheese, and olives, accompanied by cool water from a clay jar. They eat in comfortable silence, each reflecting on the morning's work, planning the afternoon's tasks, enjoying the satisfaction that comes from work well done. The workshop settles into its midday quiet, the furnace continuing its steady burn, the annealing oven beginning its slow work of tempering the morning's creations. This is the rhythm of the glassblower's life, intense periods of focused work alternating with times of rest and reflection, all governed by the natural cycles of the craft. After their meal, Khalil begins to prepare the materials for the afternoon's work. Today he will create a set of drinking cups for a local tavern keeper, each one slightly different, but all sharing the same basic elegance and functionality. This is the bread and butter of the glassblower's trade, functional pieces that bring beauty into everyday life. Amara tends to the furnace, adding fuel carefully to maintain the proper temperature. The afternoon light streaming through the workshop windows creates a different quality of illumination than the morning sun. It is softer, more golden, casting warm shadows that enhance the natural beauty of the glass pieces on the shelves. This light is perfect for the detailed work that lies ahead, providing clear visibility without harsh glare. Khalil begins gathering glass for the first cup, his movements as smooth and practiced as a dancer's. The glass flows onto the blowpipe like liquid light, beautiful in its molten state, but holding within it the promise of the finished form. Each gathering is slightly different, affected by the temperature of the glass, the condition of the furnace, the subtle variations in the raw materials. The first cup takes shape under his practiced hands, the glass expanding and contracting in response to his breath and movements. He shapes it with the confidence of long experience, but also with the attention to detail that never becomes routine. Each piece deserves his full attention, whether it is a simple cup or an elaborate ceremonial vessel. The rhythm of the work is hypnotic, soothing to watch and soothing to perform. The repetitive motions, the steady breathing, the constant attention to the present moment, all of these create a meditative state that calms the mind and feeds the soul. This is work that engages the whole person, requiring physical skill, mental concentration, and spiritual awareness. As the afternoon progresses, the workshop fills with completed cups, each one slightly different from the others, but all sharing the same essential quality of skilled craftsmanship. Some are taller, some wider, some have subtle variations in color or decoration, but all are beautiful in their own way. This is the hallmark of handmade objects, their individuality, their slight imperfections that mark them as products of human hands and human hearts. Amara continues her own practice, working on a series of small bowls that will help her develop her skills in shaping and proportion. Each bowl teaches her something new about the behavior of glass, the effects of different temperatures, the importance of timing and patience. She is learning not just the techniques of glass blowing, but its deeper lessons about working with natural materials, about accepting what cannot be controlled while exercising skill over what can be shaped. The sounds of the workshop continue their peaceful rhythm, the soft breathing, the gentle clink of tools, the whisper of flame in the furnace. These sounds become part of the craftsman's consciousness, a background symphony that helps maintain the meditative state necessary for fine work. The workshop is a sanctuary, a place where the outside world fades away and only the work remains. As the sun begins to move toward the western horizon, the quality of light in the workshop changes again. The golden afternoon light gives way to the warmer, more amber tones of late day. This light is particularly beautiful on glass, bringing out the subtle colors and textures that make each piece unique. Khalil pauses in his work to examine the day's production. The jug from the morning sits in the unkneeling oven, slowly cooling to room temperature. The cups from the afternoon are arranged on a wooden tray, waiting their turn for the annealing process. Each piece represents hours of careful work, but more than that, each embodies the tradition and skill of generations of glassblowers. The daily work of the glassblower is both routine and extraordinary. Routine in that the same basic processes are repeated day after day, season after season, year after year. Extraordinary in that each piece created is unique, each one a small miracle of transformation from sand and fire to objects of beauty and utility. As evening approaches, the time comes to begin the careful process of closing down the workshop for the day. The furnace must be tended, its temperature adjusted for the overnight burn. The tools must be cleaned and arranged for the next day's work. The workspace must be swept and organized, ready for another day of creation. But before the final preparations begin, there is time for one last task. Khalil takes up his blowpipe once more and gathers a small amount of glass from the furnace. This will be a special piece, created not for sale, but for the joy of creation itself. Perhaps a small ornament, perhaps a delicate flower, perhaps simply an exploration of form and color. These personal pieces are often the most beautiful, created without the constraints of commercial requirements, free to follow the natural inspiration of the moment. They serve as a reminder of why the craftsman first fell in love with his art, why he continues to find joy in the daily transformation of sand and fire into beauty. The small piece takes shape quickly under Khalil's experienced hands. It is a simple form, elegant in its restraint, beautiful in its perfect proportions. The glass seems to glow from within, lit by the dying light of the furnace and the warm rays of the setting sun. It is a fitting end to a day of productive work, a reminder that even in the most practical of crafts, there is always room for pure artistry. As darkness begins to fall over the city of Sidon, the workshop settles into its evening quiet. The furnace burns low but steady, maintaining the heat that will be needed for tomorrow's work. The unkneeling ovens continue their slow work, gradually cooling the day's creations to a state of permanent stability. Khalil and Amara perform the final tasks of the day, banking the fires, covering the tools, securing the workshop for the night. These routines are as important as the creative work itself, ensuring that everything will be ready for another day of craftsmanship. The streets of the city are filled with the sounds of evening, merchants closing their stalls, children playing in the courtyards, the distant sound of music from the taverns near the harbor. But in the glass workshop, peace reigns supreme, the quiet satisfaction of work well done, settling over the space like a gentle blanket. The tradition of glass blowing stretches back through the centuries, each generation of craftsmen adding their own discoveries and innovations to the accumulated wisdom of the craft. Techniques are passed down from master to apprentice, not just as mechanical procedures, but as a complete way of approaching the world. With patience, with respect for materials, with an understanding of the delicate balance between control and surrender that marks all true craftsmanship. The glassblower's art requires not just technical skill, but a deep understanding of the nature of glass itself. Glass is neither liquid nor solid in the conventional sense, but something in between, a material that retains some of the fluidity of its molten state, even after it has cooled and hardened. This unique property allows for the creation of forms that would be impossible in any other medium. The beauty of blown glass lies not just in its visual appeal, but in its embodiment of the process that created it. Each piece carries within it the breath of its maker, the rhythm of its shaping, the patience of its cooling. These invisible qualities give handmade glass a warmth and life that cannot be replicated by machine production. As night settles over the ancient city, the workshop becomes a place of dreams and possibilities. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new opportunities for creation, new chances to transform simple materials into objects of lasting beauty. The eternal cycle of the craft continues, as it has for centuries, as it will for centuries to come. The young apprentice Amara lies in her small chamber above the workshop, listening to the gentle sounds of the sleeping city. She thinks about the day's work, about the pieces she created, about the lessons she learned. In her mind, she is already planning tomorrow's projects, imagining the forms she will create, the colors she will blend, the techniques she will practice. The master craftsman Khalil sits for a while in his garden behind the workshop, enjoying the cool evening air and the peaceful sounds of night. He reflects on the day's accomplishments, on the progress of his apprentice, on the enduring satisfaction of his chosen craft. The stars above shine like tiny pieces of glass, each one perfect in its own way, each one part of a larger pattern of beauty and order. The furnace burns through the night, tended by the night watchman who ensures that the fire never dies. This continuous flame is the heart of the workshop, the source of all creation, the link between one day's work and the next. It represents the continuity of the craft, the unbroken chain of tradition that connects each generation of glass blowers to those who came before and those who will come after. In the quiet hours before dawn, when the city sleeps and only the watchmen and the bakers are awake, the workshop exists in a state of perfect potential. The tools wait patiently for skilled hands to bring them to life. The raw materials rest in their containers, ready to be transformed. The furnace burns steadily, maintaining the heat that will make creation possible. This is the magic of the glassblower's craft, the transformation of the simplest materials into objects of extraordinary beauty through the application of skill, patience, and love. It is work that engages not just the hands, but the heart, not just the mind, but the soul. It is work that connects the craftsman to the fundamental creative forces of the universe, to the ancient human impulse to make beauty from chaos, order from randomness, meaning from mere material. The workshop of Khalil, the glassblower, stands as a testament to the enduring power of human creativity. In a world that often seems dominated by conflict and complexity, it represents A simpler, more peaceful way of being. One focused on the creation of beauty, the perfection of skill and the patient, transformation of humble materials into objects of lasting value. As you drift toward sleep, let yourself imagine the gentle sounds of the workshop, the whisper of breath through the blowpipe, the soft clink of tools, the barely audible hiss of the furnace. Let these sounds become a lullaby, carrying you into dreams of ancient cities and timeless crafts, of patient hands creating beauty from fire and sand, of traditions that endure across the centuries like the glass itself, fragile yet strong, beautiful yet functional, ancient yet eternally new. In your dreams, you might find yourself walking through the narrow streets of ancient Sidon, feeling the warm Mediterranean breeze on your face, hearing the distant sound of waves against the harbor walls. You might step through the door of the glass workshop and feel the immediate sense of peace that comes from entering a place dedicated to creation and beauty. You might watch as master and apprentice work together in perfect harmony, their movements synchronized by years of practice and mutual respect. You might see the molten glass flow like liquid sunlight, responding to the craftsman's breath and touch, taking shape under skilled hands that understand the delicate balance between control and surrender. You might hear the soft symphony of the workshop, the rhythmic breathing, the gentle scraping of tools, the whisper of flame, the distant sounds of the city beyond the walls. These sounds might blend together into a perfect lullaby, carrying you deeper into peaceful sleep, into dreams of ancient wisdom and timeless beauty. And as you sleep, you might carry with you the essential lessons of the glassblower's craft, the importance of patience, the value of tradition, the joy of creating beauty with your own hands, the satisfaction of work well done. These lessons might settle into your dreams like seeds, ready to bloom into new understanding when you wake. Sleep now and dream of the ancient glassblowers, their workshops filled with light and warmth, their hands shaping beauty from the simplest materials, their hearts filled with the quiet satisfaction of craftsmen who have found their calling in the service of beauty and tradition. Let their peaceful rhythm become your own, carrying you into the deep, restful sleep that comes to those who have found their place in the great pattern of creation. The workshop sleeps too, but it is not an empty sleep. It is the sleep of potential, of energy gathering itself for another day of creation. The furnace burns low but steady. The tools rest in perfect order. The materials wait patiently for skilled hands to bring them to life once again. This is the eternal cycle of the craft: rest and work, sleep and waking, potential and fulfillment, all part of the greater rhythm that governs all creation. And in this rhythm, in this ancient dance of fire and sand, breath and glass, tradition and innovation, There is a peace that transcends time, a beauty that endures across the centuries, a satisfaction that fills the heart and quiets the mind. This is the gift of the glass blower's craft, not just the beautiful objects it creates, but the peace and harmony it brings to those who practice it, and to those who pause to appreciate its quiet magic. The night deepens over Sidon and in workshops throughout the city. Other craftsmen are also settling into their evening routines. The bronze smiths bank their forges, the potters cover their wheels, the weavers put aside their looms, but the glass workshop maintains its unique rhythm, the furnace continuing to burn through the darkness, a beacon of creative potential in the sleeping city. Khalil moves through his evening preparations with the same methodical care he brings to his glasswork. Each tool is cleaned and placed in its proper location. Each material container is checked and sealed. Each work surface is swept clean of the day's debris. These seemingly mundane tasks are actually sacred rituals, part of the larger ceremony of the craft that encompasses every aspect of the glassblower's life. The apprentice Amara has learned to appreciate these evening routines as much as the more dramatic moments of creation. She understands now that the craft is not just about the exciting moments when molten glass takes shape under skilled hands, but about the entire cycle of preparation, creation, and completion. The quiet tasks of maintenance and organization are as important as the spectacular moments of artistic inspiration. In the corner of the workshop, the glory hole, a smaller furnace used for reheating pieces during the working process, glows with a gentler heat than the main furnace. Its steady warmth will be maintained throughout the night, ready to support tomorrow's work. The rhythm of heating and reheating, working and reworking, is fundamental to the glassblower's art. Unlike pottery, which is shaped once and then fired to permanent hardness, glass can be repeatedly softened and reshaped, allowing for corrections, refinements, and artistic evolution throughout the creative process. The annealing ovens, where completed pieces cool slowly to prevent internal stress, represent another aspect of the craft's inherent patience. These ovens maintain a carefully controlled temperature that decreases gradually over many hours or even days, depending on the size and thickness of the pieces being annealed. This slow cooling is absolutely essential. Pieces that are cooled too quickly will develop internal tensions that can cause them to shatter unpredictably, sometimes days or weeks after they were made. Khalil checks the annealing ovens one final time, adjusting the dampers that control the cooling rate. Inside, he can see the faint glow of pieces from earlier in the week. A large ceremonial bowl commissioned for the temple of Astarte, several oil lamps for a wealthy merchant's home, and a delicate perfume bottle that will hold precious scents from the mountains of Lebanon. Each piece represents not just hours of skilled labor, but the culmination of generations of accumulated knowledge about the behavior of glass at different temperatures and stages of cooling. The workshop exists in a state of suspended animation during these night hours, pregnant with possibilities for the coming day. The shelves that line the walls hold examples of every type of vessel that the human imagination has conceived. Storage jars tall enough to hold a man's height in grain. Delicate unguentaria no bigger than a child's thumb. Ceremonial chalices adorned with threads of gold. Practical bowls for everyday use that will serve families for generations. Each piece on these shelves tells a story, not just of its creation, but of its intended use, its place in the larger tapestry of human life. The large storage vessels speak of maritime trade, of ships loaded with precious goods sailing across the Mediterranean to distant markets. The small cosmetic bottles reflect the sophisticated beauty practices of Phoenician women, their knowledge of perfumes and unguents that rival those of Egypt and Mesopotamia. The ceremonial pieces connect to the rich spiritual life of the city, the elaborate rituals that honor the gods and goddesses who protect the community. As the night progresses, the sounds of the city gradually fade to the gentle murmur of the night. Watch making their rounds, the distant sound of waves against the harbor walls, the soft whisper of wind through the cedar groves that surround the city. These night sounds become part of the workshop's atmosphere, a natural symphony that complements the steady hiss of the furnace and the occasional gentle crack of cooling glass. The master glass blower's knowledge extends far beyond the technical aspects of his craft. He understands the sources of his raw materials, the trade routes that bring sand from Egypt and natron from the dried lake beds of the interior. He knows which beaches produce the purest sand, which forests provide the best ash for flux, which mines yield the metallic compounds that create the most beautiful colors. This knowledge has been accumulated over generations, passed down from master to apprentice, not just as information, but as living wisdom. Each piece of knowledge has been tested and refined through countless repetitions. Each technique has been perfected through years of practice and experimentation. The glass blower's craft represents one of humanity's earliest examples of applied chemistry, of understanding how different materials interact under controlled conditions to produce predictable results. The colors available to the ancient glass blower were more limited than those known to modern craftsmen. But within those constraints, extraordinary beauty was achieved. Copper produced rich blues and deep reds, depending on the atmospheric conditions in the furnace. Iron created greens, ranging from pale sage to deep forest hues. Gold produced warm ambers and ruby reds that seemed to glow with inner fire. Silver created delicate pearls and whites that caught and reflected light like captured moonbeams. The most prized color of all was the deep purple that gave the Phoenicians their name. Vessels were sometimes painted with this royal purple after completion, creating pieces that were literally worth their weight in silver. The purple dye trade was one of the foundations of Phoenician wealth, and glass vessels decorated with this precious color were among the most valuable trade goods of the ancient world. In the quiet hours before dawn, when the city sleeps deepest, the workshop takes on an almost mystical quality. The furnace light casts dancing shadows on the walls, creating patterns that seem to move and shift like living things. The glass pieces on the shelves catch and reflect this light, creating a subtle display of color and brilliance that transforms the workshop into a cave of wonders. This is the time when the glassblower's apprentice often experiences her deepest insights into the nature of the craft. Surrounded by the gentle sounds and subtle lights of the sleeping workshop, the mind becomes receptive to the deeper mysteries of the art. The apprentice begins to understand that glass blowing is not just a method of making useful objects, but a meditation on the nature of transformation itself. The process of glass making mirrors many of the fundamental processes of life and nature. The transformation of solid sand into liquid glass parallels the cycles of freezing and thawing that shape the landscape. The careful control of temperature reflects the delicate balance of conditions necessary for all life. The gradual cooling and hardening of the finished piece echoes the way all living things develop from fluid beginnings into stable, mature forms. These deeper meanings of the craft are not taught explicitly, but absorbed gradually through years of practice and observation. The apprentice learns to see the workshop not just as a place of production, but as a microcosm of the larger world. The tradition of glass making extends far beyond the individual workshop or even the city of Sidon. Throughout the Mediterranean world, craftsmen are practicing variations of the same basic techniques, each regional school developing its own specialties and innovations. The glassmakers of Egypt are renowned for their skill with core-formed vessels, creating intricate patterns by wrapping colored glass around removable cores. The craftsmen of Mesopotamia excel in creating glass that imitates precious stones, developing techniques for producing convincing replicas of lapis lazuli and turquoise. But it is here in Phoenicia, in cities like Sidon and Tyre, that the art of free-blown glass reaches its highest development. The Phoenician glass blowers have perfected the technique of inflating glass bubbles to create hollow vessels of unprecedented size and complexity. Their innovations in furnace design, tool development, and temperature control have made possible the creation of pieces that would have been impossible using earlier methods. The influence of Phoenician glass extends far beyond the borders of their homeland. Phoenician merchants carry glass vessels to every corner of the known world, from the Atlantic coasts of Spain and Morocco to the Black Sea ports of the north in distant markets. These vessels are prized not just for their practical utility, but as symbols of sophistication and cultural refinement. Carried by traveling craftsmen, captured slaves who possess valuable skills, and merchants who recognize profitable opportunities, but its fundamental principles, the careful control of heat, the patient manipulation of materials, the balance between technical skill and artistic vision, will remain constant across the centuries. As dawn approaches and the eastern sky begins to show the first faint hints of light, the workshop prepares for another day of creation, are ready to be transformed once again into objects of beauty and utility. His internal clock synchronized with the rhythms of his craft. The first task of each day is to check the condition of the furnace, to ensure that the temperature is correct for the day's work, that the glass within has maintained its proper consistency through the night hours. The apprentice joins him shortly after, equally attuned to the rhythms of the workshop. Together, they perform the morning rituals of preparation, checking tools, organizing materials, planning the day's production schedule. These preparations are conducted largely in silence, both master and apprentice focused on the tasks at hand, their movements economical and purposeful. Merchants open their stalls in the market squares. Fishermen return with their early catches. Bakers begin the first batches of bread for the day. The workshop exists within this larger community, but maintains its own special rhythm, its own cycle of activity that follows the demands of the craft rather than the conventional divisions of the day. The morning light streaming through the workshop windows reveals the results of the previous day's work. The water jug created the day before has achieved the perfect balance of hardness and resilience that characterizes properly annealed glass. Khalil removes the completed jug from the annealing oven and examines it carefully in the morning light. The blue and gold decoration has achieved exactly the effect he intended, the colors flowing around the form in graceful spirals that enhance rather than overwhelm the basic shape. The proportions are perfect, the balance ideal for practical use. It is a piece that will serve its owners well, while bringing beauty into their daily lives. This examination of completed work is one of the most important parts of the glassblower's education. Each finished piece provides feedback about the techniques used in its creation, revealing what worked well and what might be improved in future pieces. The experienced craftsman can read the history of a piece in its final form, the temperature of the glass at each stage of working, the timing of each manipulation, the skill level of the craftsman who created it. The morning's first task is the creation of a new batch of glass. Sand provides the basic structure of the glass, but but it must be combined with flux materials that lower the melting point and stabilizing agents that prevent the finished glass from being too soft or too brittle. The proportions of each ingredient must be exact. Too much sand, and the glass will be difficult to melt and work. Too little, and it will be unstable and prone to devitrification. The flux materials must be pure and properly prepared, free from impurities that could cause defects in the finished glass. Each measurement is checked and double-checked. 4 errors at this stage will affect every piece created from the batch. While the new batch melts, work continues with glass from the previous day's preparation. The morning is the ideal time for detailed work, when the craftsman's hands are steady and his concentration is fresh. Each one to be decorated with delicate trails of white glass that will create patterns like frost on a winter morning. The creation of each goblet follows the same basic sequence: gathering, inflation, shaping, decoration, finishing, but each piece develops its own character as it progresses. Tiny fluctuations in the craftsman's movements all contribute to the individuality that marks handmade objects. The white glass used for decoration must be prepared separately, heated to exactly the right temperature to flow smoothly when applied, but not so hot that it disturbs the base glass of the goblet. The timing of the decoration is critical. Too early, and the white glass will sink into the base. Too late, and it will not adhere properly. This is the kind of subtle timing that can only be learned through years of practice and careful observation. As each goblet is completed, it joins its fellows in the annealing oven, beginning the slow cooling process that will stabilize its molecular structure and ensure its long-term durability. The annealing schedule varies depending on the size and thickness of each piece, but all follow the same basic principle of gradual temperature reduction that allows internal stresses to relax naturally. The workshop fills with the familiar sounds of productive work, the steady breathing required for glass blowing, the gentle scrape of tools against glass, the soft footsteps of craftsmen moving between workstations. These sounds create a peaceful rhythm that helps maintain the meditative state necessary for fine craft work. The midday break provides time for reflection and planning. Master and apprentice share a simple meal while discussing the morning's work and planning the afternoon's tasks. These conversations are an important part of the apprentice's education. Opportunities to explore the theoretical aspects of the craft and to understand the reasoning behind various techniques and procedures. The afternoon brings different challenges and opportunities. The light is different, requiring adjustments in how colors are perceived and blended. The temperature in the workshop has risen with the sun, affecting the behavior of the glass and the comfort of the workers. Experience teaches the craftsman to adapt to these changing conditions, to modify techniques as needed to maintain consistent quality throughout the day. The final pieces of the day are often the most creative. These might be experimental pieces, explorations of new techniques or forms, or simply expressions of the joy that comes from working with such a responsive and beautiful material. As evening approaches once again, the cycle prepares to complete itself. The day's work will be carefully stored and protected. The furnace will be adjusted for overnight burning. The workshop will be cleaned and organized for another day of creation. But the essential spirit of the craft, the transformation of simple materials into objects of beauty through skill, patience, and love, will continue unchanged, as it has for generations, as it will for generations to come. The ancient glass blowers of Phoenicia created more than beautiful objects. They created a tradition of craftsmanship that embodies some of humanity's highest values: patience, skill, dedication to quality, respect for materials, and the drive to create beauty in the world. Their workshops were schools of wisdom as much as centers of production, places where young people learned not just technical skills, but life lessons about persistence, attention to detail, and the satisfaction that comes from work well done. Sleep now and dream of these ancient workshops, these patient craftsmen, these traditions that connect us across the centuries to our shared human heritage of creativity and skill. End of story. Total word count, approximately 8,000 words. This sleep story is designed to be read slowly and softly, with natural pauses for breath and reflection. The repetitive, meditative nature of the glass blowing process creates a soothing rhythm perfect for relaxation and sleep.